All right, on the lower right hand side of your screen where you can see the taskbar with all the little icons near the time, all you have to do is go to the blizzardbattle.net, double click on that, and then make sure you're looking at the Call of Duty Warzone screen by clicking on the icon on the left hand side. Click on that, and then look for the options, the little cogwheel icon right here. Click on that one, and then click on scan and repair. Go through the prompts, just hit okay, yes, 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 okay, okay, yada yada yada, and then it will go through a process of like about 5 to 30 minutes, and that should scan and repair the files, the missing or broken files in your Call of Duty Warzone folder. This is always a good thing, especially if you're running through problems, not just with Call of Duty, but also with other games. This is because we want to make sure we have all the files necessary in order for Call of Duty Warzone to work properly on your computer first before we do anything. And like what I said earlier, I am not certain which fixed the problems, but certainly I noticed a huge bump in performance when I did all the steps I am talking about today. Alright, after about 5 to 20 minutes of going through the scan and repair process, if you see this option right here that says check for updates, also click on that one just in case your computer is missing an update for Call of Duty Warzone, because Blizzard has a history of actually not automatically updating the games, especially if you're doing something bandwidth intensive on your computer like playing games and stuff like that, because those kind of things stop Blizzard from automatically updating games and thus possibly missing some updates that should have been run on your system already. All right, after that, you want to download timer resolution right here. Timer resolution. Just imagine what you're looking at right now is my desktop screen. I made an entirely different folder just to make it less confusing for people. Just imagine this is your desktop, your apps manually. Now, all you have to do is download timer resolution first. It should be down in the description below. Just click on that and then go over to the downloads. All you have to do is click on the download timer resolution link on the description below, and then once you're there, just click on download this file right here, and then when you click that, you should get timer resolution as you've been seeing earlier on the folder. And once you have this one, you don't have to install it. All you have to do is just right click and then run as administrator. Make sure to save it somewhere in your desktop so you could easily run it whenever you need it. Run as administrator once you have it running. Okay, if you pay attention to this, the timer resolution range is 15.625 and then 0.500 milliseconds. 15.625 is the timer resolution, the response time your computer has when the computer is idle, and it goes as low as 0.500 or 0.5 milliseconds every time your computer is running a game, in order to maximize your CPU performance or the response time between your computer, your hardware, and your games, which in practice should improve performance on any tasks on a computer, such as playing games, especially playing games and running CPU intensive applications like Adobe products, for example. So as you can see, the current timer resolution is 0.999, which is 1 millisecond. That is fairly okay. All right, that's actually okay. Now if you want to max it out, all you have to do is just click on maximum, and that would put it down to 0.499, which is 0.5 millisecond. That's the best the Windows 10 can actually run. Once you have that there, you don't want to close this down. All you want to do is you want to click on the minimize to put it down in your taskbar, and once it's there, you can play it back to put it back on. And when you're done playing your game, all you have to do is just click on default to put things back to normal and let Windows handle the timer resolution for you. Like I said, you don't want to always have this on maximum, as this could harm your operating system and your computer in the long run if you're always running it on maximum. And every time you restart your computer, it obviously closes down set timer resolution anyways, so there's that. For now, we're gonna leave it in maximum timer resolution. Again, this improves the response time between your CPU, your memory, and applications such as Call of Duty Modern Warfare, which is pretty freaking CPU intensive. All right, now we're ready to go to Modern Warfare Call of Duty Warzone to test it out. But before that, the reason why I have the icon here is because we need to go to the file location of Modern Warfare, and let me show you how to do that first. All you have to do is right click on this, click on open file location. Very simple, and that will bring you into the folder where Modern Warfare is installed into. Now all you have to do is look for Modern Warfare here, the one with the relatively bigger file size, not the launcher. Just right click on Modern Warfare, then click on properties. Then all you have to do is go to the compatibility tab. Once you're in the compatibility tab, all you have to do is click on disable full screen optimizations and run this program as an administrator. Now, the reason why you want to disable full screen optimizations on this game for Windows is because Windows does not always get this right. You know, when Windows 10 runs optimizations for full screen applications, sometimes it tricks stuff up and make mouse movements inaccurate and stuff like that. So you want to disable that and let the game handle it, and your graphics card, not Windows. So that's what it means. Now, you wanted to run this program as an administrator so that when the computer, when your operating system, when your user access needs to make snappy decisions on files like, you know, like the in-game files and stuff like that, the computer wouldn't need to ask for permission every time something happens important in the background. So, you know, this is not really a big deal, but I just clicked, you know, I just made this run as an administrator just to make sure everything's running with enough privileges in your computer. You don't really have to think about that, but you know, it's up to you. Then hit OK, apply OK, close it down, and that's good. Now, going back to your desktop screen, you can now open Call of Duty Modern Warfare. So what we're going to do now is optimize Call of Duty Warzone. So what you want to do is simply go over to the options and then go to the graphics section first. Now, for today's for the sake of the tutorial, I'm leaving this on full screen borderless for now, but what you want to do with this one first is make sure that you're playing in full screen mode, never on window, never on full screen borderless. What full screen borderless and windowed mode does when you're running the game is actually makes the response time between your hardware, your monitor, your graphics card, and your mouse input slower than it is on full screen. That's the reason why professional players prefer playing in full screen. The reason behind that is because full screen mode offers the best input lag, the best response time when it comes to input lag, such as, you know, your mouse movements and stuff like that. And in return, and at the same time, it also improves the FPS by a shit ton compared to windowed and full screen borderless. Maybe you'd notice it, maybe not, but I would highly recommend playing the game in full screen mode. As of the moment, I'm gonna leave this in full screen borderless because I'm recording and I might need to go out tabbing, you know, since I don't have a multiple setup monitor. Now, the monitor I'm using right now is a 60Hz monitor, which means that it can only run 60 frames, and I'm gonna talk about that in a little bit. For now, just like what I said earlier, I'm using a different setup, and it is running on a relatively old computer. Relatively old GPU, which is the AMD Radeon Asus R9 380X, which is a really old GPU. And for the sake of this tutorial, we're using this graphics card, so just to make a point. Now, screen refresh rate, it's locked to 60 simply because my monitor is just, you know, stuck to 60 frames. And also I'm running a full screen borderless. Alright, so the first thing we're going to talk about here is the render resolution. What this does is it represents the resolution of the 3D scene of what's rendered on your screen versus what your actual monitor resolution is. So the resolution of the monitor I'm using right now is 1080p or 1920 by 1080, but as you can see here, the render resolution is only outputting 1690 by 950. This is like a simulated resolution, and what it does is the lower resolution you put here, the better frame rate you're getting. It's as if the game is running on 1267 by 713, although you're visually seeing a 1080p resolution, you know, on the entire screen. Putting this down will absolutely make you get the best frame rates and stuff like that when it comes to game performance, but of course it makes the screen more blurry and more pixelated, so you don't really want to put it down to the lowest. But if your graphics card really can't handle it, then lowering down the render resolution is a good idea. For me, I'm gonna leave it on 90 because, you know, again, I'm using a really old GPU, but we're gonna talk about more stuff here, so stay tuned. Now, if you go to the advanced, as you can see, it's set to 1920 by 1080, so the game is still really running in 1080p. It's just that you're lowering down the render, making it lighter for your system. As for the aspect ratio, just leave it automatic, doesn't really matter. Sync every frame, VSync. Oh, you want to always have that disabled since we're gonna lock the frames to 60 frames anyways. Locking the VSync will make your timer resolution or make your input lag really freaking terrible and making the game unplayable because you will have a tough time turning around corners. If you turn this on, you're not a gamer. That's it. Alright, so here we go. This is what I'm talking about. It's custom frame rate limit. What this does is it limits your frame rate to whatever you want to put it on. Now, the reason why you want to turn this on is it's pretty much similar to VSync, but instead of affecting your input lag, which makes your mouse movement slow and sluggish, this basically just puts a cap on the frame rate your computer is utilizing from your GPU, which helps the CPU usage and your GPU usage at the same time. So since I'm using a 60 Hz monitor or 60 FPS monitor, we're locking it down to 60, and then 60 here, and then 30 here. Now, as for NVIDIA highlights, since I'm using an AMD graphics card, doesn't really matter. What this does is it records scenes in the background, which actually doubles the usage of your GPU. Even if I was using NVIDIA, I would still disable this, as this will hinder the performance of your gameplay. So always have that disabled, unless you're a content creator looking to save clips or highlights of the best gameplays you've had in the game. But since that defeats the purpose of this video, get the hell out of here. All right, now here is one really important, and this is a game changer for me. I think this is one of the things that actually made the game run more responsive and give me more frames. Now, as you can see here where it says restart shaders installation, use this option to delete your shaders cache and reinstall all shaders. I think this is something that Activision actually put really recently in the options menu, because this has a lot to do with the crashing of the game, if my research serves correct. So what this does is it basically re-downloads the shaders that the game initially downloaded on your computer. Now, Ninja, why do I want to re-download the shaders when the game already did it? It's because it came with bugs when it initially came out. And who knows, maybe those bugs actually made the crashing terrible and the frame drops terrible when the game first came out. So, click on that, click on this. All you have to do is click on this and then, click on restart, which will, restart the game. I have to do is run the game again, and then it will show you a notification on the top of the screen that it's downloading something. Do not do anything in that process. Just let it download whatever it needs to download. Okay, and that's it. Now, display gamma, you don't have to touch that. Now, here is what I was talking about earlier when it comes to display the graphic settings and the texture. What you want to do from here onwards is put everything down to low and then put the texture resolution to high. This has nothing to do with your CPU, by the way. This is handled by your GPU. Now, although the 380X, the R9 380X is a fairly old GPU, it's still powerful for today's games. It can still cope up with today's games, and this doesn't really affect your CPU that much. So just put it to high. This depends on which kind of graphics card you're using. If you're using a fairly old and weak graphics cards, just put this down to whatever your GPU can cope up with. For me, I'm gonna put it to high because the GPU can still cope up with high texture resolution. So, that's what works for me. As for the rest, put everything else to low, normal, or low. What the rest does from this point onwards is actually gonna affect your CPU big time. As you can see, look up my settings. Take a screenshot if you need to. I want anti-aliasing because, lowering down the render resolution actually makes the edges jagged and makes visibility kind of difficult at some point. So I'm leaving it on the first level of the anti-aliasing. Depth of field, no, I don't want depth of field. All right, so the last thing we're going to talk about is the field of view. It's under the general tab instead of the graphics tab now. Now, what the field of view does is it makes your visual interface, what you see when you're playing the game, as shown on the right preview here. The lower field of view you do, the more zoomed in your looks like, but the more limited the actual space you're seeing, as shown on the right preview of the screen. So I'm not used to anything lower than 90. 90 is like my default go-to field of view when playing CSGO, PUBG, and stuff like that. Now, keep in mind that the higher the field of view you have, the more awareness you'll have when you're looking at the screen, but the more zoomed out it feels like. So you know, you'll have a terrible time seeing opponents closer, and if they have a smaller field of view, they will see you first before you see them. Now, another thing about the field of view is the lower field of view you have on the game, or any game for that matter, the more frame rate you'll be getting. The reason behind this is because the game or the computer isn't processing as much detail on screen as it is when you're playing with a bigger field of view. So look, you know, pulling this down not only makes your targets more visible closer and more closer to what it actually is, despite the fact that you're not seeing the sides of the screen as shown here on the preview, but also increases your performance. And actually, when I say that it increases your performance, it dramatically improves the FPS. So if you're really having a trouble with your FPS catching up with, you know, at least 60 FPS, then you may want to lower down the field of view, especially if you're using a fairly weaker graphics card. This helps out your graphics card, but not really your CPU a lot. So I recommend lowering this down depending on what suits your hardware and what suits your needs. For me, I'm gonna leave it at 90 FOV because that's what I'm comfortable with. And I can actually put this up higher, but it doesn't really make sense for me. All right, so what's left to do now is play the game. And like I said earlier, we want to play the game in full screen instead of borderless. All right, now that we're all done with the optimization and all the settings that I did to make the game run more fluid and actually not crash whatsoever, we are now ready to play the game. All right, I'm just gonna run through one game. All right, keep in mind that I have my FPS locked down to 60 frames.
Check your gear and weapons. We go soon.
No, we're running at 60 frames. This is just a practice area. Shit. I didn't take that up.
Battle Royale.
Alright, so we're pretty stable in 60 frames.
Mark a drop point for your team. You'll lead them in.
That's our drop zone! Get ready!
Alright, what's good, what's good? Oh, just two of us. What the fuck happened to the other guy? Jump, jump, jump. Alright, so I'm pretty used to playing a lot of VR games, especially PUBG and Blackout. And I always prefer dropping at the far edges of the circle first, especially with this game where we get 150 people at once.
Targets are up. Get to work.
Alright, let's go. Of course, I don't have a gun.
Moving! Contact! Gas is moving.
Check your fire! Enemies in the area! Taking fire!
Oh fuck. Enemy right in front of us. Sniper.
Taking fire! Target marked. Send it.
This is Striker 3-1. Good copy. Strike inbound. Impact, no joy.
Teammate has been cleared for redeployment.